Let's call the House K-12 Subcommittee order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Carringer. Rep. Cassada. Chairman Sapicki.
Here.
Rep. Clemens. Here. Chairman Haston.
Here.
Chairman Hart.
Here.
Representative Love.
Here.
Chairman Reagan.
Here.
Chairman White.
Here.
Chairman, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Any personal orders before we dive into today's calendar? Seeing none, let's go through the calendar a little bit and give you some updates on what we have in front of us today, almost tonight. We are looking at, what's the first one that we were?
Number 14.
Item number 14 is off notice. And item number 16 is, what is it, rolled?
2 weeks.
Rolled 2 weeks. And I believe, item number 21, since it has to do with the BEP, will be rolled to the final calendar until we get a chance to see the formula that everyone's waiting on. And we are going to roll item number 1 a few spaces since Chairman Sapicki is in here, and due to a scheduling considerations, we are going to take up item number 18, House Bill 2088 first. Item number 18, House Bill 2088 first by Chairman White. Properly motioned. Chairman White, you are recognized on House Bill 2088.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And members, I think we do have an amendment that rewrites the bill.
Motion on the amendment. Second.
13390.
All right, 13390. Without objection, we'll go ahead and get that on the bill. All those in favor of adopting the amendment, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say no. The ayes have it. We are back on the bill as amended. Chairman White, you are recognized.
Thank you. And members, what this basically does, in some of our institutes of higher education, they have training schools, which are on campus. They have K through 12 training schools, originally designed to train teachers, but these are K through 12s. What this bill will do was allow them to contract with an LEA. The current language says the LEA, but this will allow them to contract with LEAs across the state. And barring any questions, go. Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
No questions from me. Does anybody have any questions for the sponsor about the bill? Seeing none, we will be voting on House Bill 2088. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. It's on to full education.
Most appreciated. Thank you.
All right, that takes us back up to item number 2 on the calendar, House Bill 2066 by Representative Gillespie. Do we have a motion? Second. Properly motion. There's no amendment with this, is there? All right, Representative Gillespie, you are recognized on House Bill 2166.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. So this bill was brought to me by the administration, and what it's really seeking to do is there are a lot of sections in code that have been there for a while. It's not quite a cleanup bill, but it's kind of that affect the way the State Department of Education and local districts handle several different matters. A lot of red tape in different areas that just honestly aren't really used anymore in 2022. And I can go over some specifics of those with you if you'd like, but with that, I renew my motion.
You've heard the explanation. Does anybody have any questions for the sponsor? Seeing none, we'll be voting on House Bill 2166. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. On to full education. Thank you. That takes us to item number 3, House Bill 1880 by Chairman Rudd. Properly motioned. Chairman Rudd, you are recognized on House Bill 1880.
Thank you. We have a friendly amendment that makes the bill 13532.
All right. All right. We'll be voting on drafting code amendment, drafting code 13532. All those in favor of this amendment, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. We are back on your bill as amended.
What the bill does is very simple, and the amendment just clarified a couple items at the suggestion of the chairman. I want to thank you, the committee, Chairman White and Haston, for making suggestions with me on the bill. What this bill does is quite simply, it says that 3 minutes at all public meetings of all public city and county school boards, there will be at least for a public comment period limited to education business at that business meeting, that the public will have a right to speak. 10 people will have a right to speak at 3 minutes apiece at a minimum. The school board is free to set a longer period if they so choose. They're also free to set other rules and regulations above what the state minimum is. And that's all the bill does. It guarantees that all school boards, public school boards, will have a public comment period.
Thank you for that explanation. Representative Carringer, you have a question?
I know. Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I had a quick question because, you know, we've had a lot of this, particularly being from Knox County, a lot of during COVID and school boards and cutting from 5 minutes to 3 minutes. And I think that's worked out very well in Knox County. I guess my real question is this just, our school board meets twice a month. Of course, they meet other times, and in terms of allowing anyone to speak, is it limited to just the full 2 sessions that the board meets, or is it at any of their meetings? Or, you know, because a lot of those meetings, when you're talking about a minor, you know, is different. So I was just wanting to clarify, because I have several from my Board of Education in Knox County questioning and asking me about that. And so just to kind of get clarification and on record, exactly what meetings, or if is it anything in any time that they meet?
Chairman Rudd?
This is the board's meetings, and both the bill and the intent is there are business meetings or official meetings where they take votes. It isn't meant for study meetings or special non-business meetings. It's strictly meant for their actual board meetings.
Representative Love, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a question about the public comment that is submitted. The board is just required to receive it. They're not required to read the public comment, are they? That's written.
The amendment states that the people are able to make a comment on board business. They don't have to be restricted to simply the agenda for that particular meeting. And they can also submit their, email their comments in if they wish to.
Right, and just trying to get clarity. And
that would not count, by the way, excuse me, that would not count towards the 3 minutes, 10 people, 3 minutes apiece at a public meeting.
Representative Love?
Yeah, just trying to get clarity about the fact that if a person submits a written comment, is the board just required just to acknowledge that they have the comment, or are they supposed to read the comment that a person sends in?
Chairman Rudd?
Just means that they can send it in, and of course they read it. They don't have to act on it. But
okay, thank you.
I would say this, Chairman, that probably, so again, we didn't clarify that. We're trying to leave the boards as much latitude as possible to set their own rules above this. We didn't infringe on them too much, just guarantee a public's right to speak, since some school boards cut that off and didn't allow public comment in the last year or two. And we want to make sure they're guaranteed that minimal. If they're allowed to submit that in writing, if the board wants to read it, I hope they would, but that's not stipulated in the bill.
Chairman White, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to make sure I'm looking at the amendment as written, and just make sure what we're doing, we're not causing confusion. I understand where you're coming from, and I appreciate it, because there have been places where parents are not heard, so I understand that. But I also know how we do business up here, and I don't want to create confusion. So in Section 1H1, it says a Board of Education must provide an opportunity for public comment at each of the board meetings as defined in Section 844102. Is that the section that talks about not their working meetings, but their open meetings?
Chairman Rudd?
You'd have to ask legal, but that was the intent of the bill and what was requested. And I believe that was also the intent of the amendment.
Okay, I'm getting my head shake. Yeah, okay.
You got confirmation from legal.
We have confirmation. And so then you go on a board's public comment period must provide an opportunity for at least 10 members of the public to speak on any topic for no more than 3 minutes per person. Members of the public to submit a written public comment to the board. Do they have to do that in advance before they get there? Is that what we're saying?
Chairman Rudd?
We didn't say that. We're leaving that up to the board. Just they have a right to have written comment. We didn't say it had to be in advance of the meeting, just to the board at the meeting.
Do they have control over how many people? It says at least 10. Do they have control over 100 or 20 or, I mean, when do you cut it off?
Chairman Rudd?
Again, it says that a minimum of 10 members, a minimum of 10 members with 3 minutes apiece have a right to speak. They can extend that to 2-hour comment period if they want. That's at a minimal. They get up to 10 people at a minimal get 3 minutes apiece to speak on any topic related to the LEA.
So if the board cuts it off after 10 people and everybody gets upset because nobody can speak, we got to have something in writing, control, so that it doesn't get out of hand again. That's what I'm trying to get at. You're saying they have the right to cut it off at any point in time after 10?
Chairman Rudd?
That's correct. We left that up to them. Some school boards currently have an hour public comment period. Some have 30 minutes. Some don't have any. But most have it in their policy to have a public comment period. And it's my understanding most of them that I'm aware of in Middle Tennessee, it's an hour. But we put a minimum of 30 minutes in there. Or not 30 minutes, 10 people speaking 3 minutes apiece. It could go up to 45 minutes at that.
Chairman White?
Okay, and then the last section, a Board of Education may provide an additional opportunity for the public to comment at the board's meetings than the required comment period established in subdivision H1. Is that of the original H1? Okay, back up to the top again. Okay, I just want to get clarity that we're not creating confusion, because I know we have to have times that we can talk about things outside of public, and then we cut off debate. We have a 24-hour process. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions for the sponsor? Seeing none, we'll be voting on House Bill 1880. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. Ayes have it. On to full education.
Thank you.
Brings us to item number 4, House Bill 2557 by Chair Lady Moody. Properly motioned. Chair Lady Moody, you are recognized on House Bill 2557.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. Let me get my little paper ready. This bill, as introduced, will prohibit an LEA or public charter school from knowingly entering into an agreement with an individual or entity that performs abortions, induces abortions, provides abortion referrals, or provides funding, advocacy, or other support for abortions. And the current law prohibits anyone who promotes anything besides abstinence-only education. So that is why, where it was silent, we wanted to make it explicit.
Thank you for that explanation. Does anybody have any questions for the sponsor of the bill? Representative Clemens, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And this refers to teaching family life in our schools. So is this an attempt to limit the type of organization that can teach family life in our schools?
Chair Lady Moody.
It has to do with as long as it supports the abstinence only, and abortion does not support that.
Representative Clemens.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm concerned that you're trying to limit the education of our public school students to one belief or one way of learning as opposed to all sides of learning. And I think the type of education, given the subject matter that you're focusing on here, are you not concerned that you would be limiting the educational opportunities of our public school students and impacting their full education and knowledge and better understanding of these subjects?
Chair Lady Moody.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, I'm interested in upholding the current law, which prohibits anyone who promotes anything other than abstinence-only education from teaching family life. So this bill will clarify who that could be or not be.
Representative Clemens?
Thank you. I understand. That's what I'm concerned about. You're only wanting one thing to be taught rather than fully informing public school students as to, and limiting their ability to get a full education, because, the situation exists where some high school students may not have access to information outside that classroom about how best to protect themselves from infectious diseases or from pregnancy or for other types of things. So if you are limiting their education, are you not worried that we're going to see increased teen pregnancy rates and perhaps the need for more state support and government spending?
Chair Lady Moody?
Actually, the law is very clear. We are abstinence only. If you practice that, you don't have any worry for getting pregnant or getting a sexually transmitted disease. So we are educating them.
Chairman Sapiki? Question has been called. Without objection, we'll be voting on House Bill 2557. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, say no.
No.
Ayes have it. On to full education. That brings us to item number 5, House Bill 1900 by Chair Lady Weaver. Properly motioned. Oh, is she? We'll be on item number 5, House Bill 1900. Chair Lady Weaver will be recognized as soon as she's there. There we go. Okay. We have a motion and a second, and you are recognized on House Bill 1900.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, members. So a little history. Last year, I believe, it might have been the year before, I get them mixed up, but I had a piece of legislation that would remove the praxis from our teachers from taking it. I mean, I've had done studies that, for instance, Massachusetts, who is #1 in education in the whole United States, they do not have a praxis for teachers. And you have to wonder, okay, what's that correlation? But the short story to the long story is this bill will actually create a fund to reimburse an educator who receives a qualifying score on a required assessment and who receives a license to teach or an endorsement in an amount equal to the cost of the assessment. We're going to create a fund. It's got a huge fiscal note. I'm aware of that. But our teachers pay for these tests out of their own pocket, between $150 to sometimes $450. Many of them have to take it numerous times, and it's an onerous and it's a bump in the road that de-incentivizes teachers to want to teach and maybe improve their endorsements. So this bill would actually create a fund to reimburse it, and hopefully it would be an incentive to have more teachers.
My fault, committee. I wanted to make sure we got in the proper posture here. This is does have an amendment that rewrites the bill, and let's go ahead and get that on. Properly motion. All those in favor of Amendment 13165 indicate by saying aye. All those opposed say no. We are back on the bill as amended, and you've heard the explanation of the bill. Does anybody have any questions for our sponsor? Seeing none, we'll be voting on House Bill 1900. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. Ayes have it. On to full education.
Thank you.
That brings us to item number 6, House Bill 1901 by Chair Lady Weaver. You are properly motioned. You are recognized, and I believe we also have an amendment on this.
Yes, and it's
Properly motioned. All those in favor of adopting Amendment 13166, is that what you have, Chair Lady Weaver?
That's correct.
All right, please indicate by saying aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. We are back on the bill as amended. Chair Lady Weaver, you are recognized.
Okay. So last year when we had COVID and all that wonderful drama, we are short teachers. In fact, we're going to be short around 7,000 or more in the near future. So this bill is another incentivizing bill to get teachers into the profession. And currently, we have, and so because of COVID last year, we passed a bill that allowed temporary teachers to teach, because a warm body in the classroom is better than none. And we all agreed to do that. There are bars that they have to go through. There's a process they have to go through to do this. Our director of schools and people in your district and my district are very capable of knowing what teachers are good to put in front of their classrooms. Because again, it's to their advantage to put a good teacher in there, because they will be evaluated as well. So what this bill will do is allow a temporary teacher to teach on a permit, and except she cannot teach PE or special ed, but passage of this bill means that she could also teach end-of-course testing and the TCAPs. There's been concerns. People have thought, well, you know, I don't know. We want to make sure they understand what they're teaching, yakety yak. But again, we have a process in place. Let me think. I think one of the main questions that was asked of me is, well, how do we know she can teach what she can teach? Every year, at the end of the school year, she has to be evaluated. She has to go through the process, which is located in the book, that's all in the bill, that's already in place, that she has to get a letter from the director of schools. She has to be highly evaluated. She has to be a 4 or 5. And she's got to make, or he has got to make all these prerequisites in order to teach. Also, in the rules of the state board, a teacher cannot teach on a temporary permit for more than 3 years. And so after 3 years, you would think either the teacher wants to continue teaching and improve her endorsements or her whatever she's wanting to do. That's a good number to do that, and she can. But again, members, I bring this bill because we are in desperate need of teachers. Are we going to lower the bar for that? No, we're not. I don't see where this lowers the bar. I see where we put faith in our local school directors. They make the evaluations. I think it would actually help the profession, because the teacher can move on and get better endorsements and get better pay. And it's just a good piece of legislation, so I hope you'll vote yes.
We do have some people on the list, but we also have the department that was down to testify. If without objection, we will go out of session and invite the department up and have them introduce themselves. And for the record, we will go out of session.
Thank you, Chairman. Jack Powers with the Department of Education.
Charlie Bufalino with the Department of Education.
So the department is in a work with sponsor position on this bill, and I just want to be clear. We offered an amendment that would have addressed some of our concerns. That is not the amendment that is before you all today. Our concern is around the inclusion of permits and extending the flexibility for permits. And just to explain the difference between a permit and a waiver momentarily, a permit is an emergency license that is given to an individual who has gone through no teacher training. What we do at the department is we check to make sure that that individual has completed a bachelor's degree, and the director of schools certifies that they have tried to recruit for that position. Historically, we have not awarded permits to state-tested subject areas. This bill also concerns waivers. Waivers are flexibilities we provide to individuals who currently hold a teaching license that allow them to teach a different subject than the one that they're currently endorsed to teach. And again, historically, we have not awarded those in state-tested subject areas. The amendment that we offered would have allowed the continued flexibility to issue waivers just for the next calendar year, but would not have allowed to continue offering permits to state-tested subject areas. And just to kind of talk for a moment, state-tested subject areas include really critical grades, 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade. Some of these really pivotal early grades where our students are still learning foundational literacy skills and learning how to read. And I will kind of harken back to some of the most recent legislation passed, the Tennessee Literacy Success Act, and the emphasis not only in our K-12 classrooms on reading instruction, but also in our also in our teacher prep programs. A permitted individual teaching in a state-tested subject area is not getting the training from a teacher prep program in foundational literacy skills. In addition, there are other classes that they're not taking on pivotal areas of teacher prep, such as classroom management and instructing students with disabilities. And so, again, our amendment would have allowed for the flexibility to offer the waivers in state-tested subject areas because those individuals already possess a teaching license, but would not have allowed for the continued flexibility to grant permits.
And I think Charlie Bufalino, the Department of Education, I think the only thing I would add is when that law was passed last year, we talked about it as an emergency relief valve for a short-term shortage that we're experiencing currently. The bill sort of as written, the bill as amended, provides that flexibility in perpetuity. There is a lot of really great efforts going underway in the state to try to aggressively address teacher shortage issues. I think the most exciting one I'd note recently was the apprenticeship model that just got approved by the U.S. Department of Labor. You know, we're going to be able to allow a pathway for folks to become a teacher for free and work in our school systems while we're working towards that. Let's see how that plays out, where we make a massive shift in state policy to allow permits and waivers in these tested subjects. But to the sponsor's point, we can see why there's a need for some short-term sort of relief to continue on for another year, and then perhaps at that point it could be evaluated whether it is necessary to provide that for more time. But we think that approach makes more sense than making a rather permanent sort of change going forward.
We've got a list growing here. No, this is for, I think, for education. Let's go to Representative Clemens.
My question is for the sponsor. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Representative Love, was your question for the department? Okay. All right, Chairman Reagan, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And gentlemen, thank you for being here. I do have a series of questions, though. Do you agree that we have approximately 7,000 teachers short or somewhere in that vicinity?
So I believe that number could potentially be referring to the number of new teachers that are produced by our teacher preparation programs. But I'm not 100% sure where that number comes from. I know that the state board has a teacher preparation report card.
What is the number? Excuse me for interrupting. How many teachers short are we?
That would be something that would have to be calculated by comparing year over year the number of new teachers that our teacher prep programs are producing. And I would note that even doing that would not give us a precise number because, of course, there are other ways that vacancies could be filled, such as teachers coming from other states. So even if we potentially, in comparing year over year differences in the number of new teachers who are produced, find that we're short, this same General Assembly has granted some flexibilities in recent years to allow and make it easier for teachers to come from out of state. So I would just note that it would not be a direct one-to-one correlation regarding shortage.
Chairman Reagan.
Thank you for that erudite explanation. However, I think you used the tried and true technique of if you can't answer the question, answer one that sounds like it. The question is, how many teachers short are we? And I give you the latitude there for giving me an estimate. Doesn't have to be precise. And teachers coming in from other states and teachers going out to other states, et cetera. Just give me a ballpark. Are we short or are we not? And if we are short, about how many?
Chairman, the ballpark, the most recent effort, and we recalculate this every year, last year the overall shortages were in the neighborhood of 10,000 teachers statewide.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, I continue with follow-up?
Absolutely.
That drives the other question that to this point, though, and that is if we have that many shortages, while we are doing our best, I assume, as a state to fill that pipeline for teachers coming from certified sources, teachers' colleges, and wherever else we get them, what are we doing in the meantime? This bill seems to be addressing an interim solution, which is going to, if we're 10,000 short, it appears to me, and without looking at the math, but just on logic, that would take more than a year to fill a 10,000 teacher shortage issue there. So if you're saying your amendment was to limit this to a year, it appears to me that just kicks the can down the road. We'll be right here again with the same bill before us for another year.
So, Chairman, thank you for the question. I have some updated information from a colleague. So, with the most recent district reports, we're at 2,200 in terms of current vacancies.
Chairman Reagan,
Okay?
if we keep prolonging this, we may have solved it by the time we get done. though.
Yeah.
We've already cut down to 8,000.
So
which you were recognizing.
2,200, is that correct? Is that statewide?
Yes, sir. That is the statewide number based on the district reports to
That's
us of their vacancies.
147 school districts. We're only 2,200 short?
That is the most recent data that we have, sir.
And that's short term. Is that
That's current vacancies.
okay? So again, with the question before is how are we going to fill that shortfall? Are we, as I understand it, and I've had conversations with Dean Emeritus of one of our teachers' colleges, we don't produce enough teachers statewide to fill those that retire and or leave for other reasons. So I don't see, from what I was told, that we have the ability to make up that shortage from our normal input. Is that correct or not?
So, no, I don't think it's quite correct. I think there are a number of different things we have done recently in the last couple of years, including things the General Assembly has done. My colleague, Mr. Powers, mentioned increased flexibility for out-of-state candidates that was just passed last year. We think that that will help sort of in this area. The department, in working in conjunction with the state board, has began to offer programs to offer additional endorsements to teachers. They don't have to go back to an EPP program to get an endorsement in special education or ESL, which are our highest two vacancy categories in terms of endorsements. That's free of cost. I think we've greatly expanded our Grow Your Own programs, which enjoy quite a bit of popularity across the state, with districts partnering with EPPs to provide free options for candidates to grow into those teacher roles. And I think the thing I mentioned earlier that we're really excited about is being the first state in the country to be approved by the U.S. Department of Labor to use federal dollars to allow folks to become a teacher for free. I think there are a number of fronts, and I think part of the reason we've seen those numbers get reduced over the course of the last 2 years is because of some of those efforts, and we think we'll be able to continue to do those shortages. Now, if there's a need for short-term flexibility for another year of this or another 2 years of this, we certainly want to be able to provide that relief for our districts, but it is not in the best interest of our students to create a permanent solution when a teacher who has not gone through any sort of preparation program is put in front of students in an untested subject. We do that when we have exhausted all other options. And so to make that a policy shift in perpetuity, we think is certainly a step too far given where we're at currently. Let's keep trying all of these other efforts to reduce those. I think the bill we just heard previously is a great way to try to address that in terms of providing some reimbursement in terms of the praxis. But this is a step too far as far as we're concerned at the Department of Education to make that permanent.
Well, I will just interject here before we get on the list. The comment was made about looking for an interim solution, and I think that you got to look at it on the other side as well. You know, we don't. To me, I don't know about putting in a long-term solution, and then once we have the teacher shortage taken care of, then we have to come back and clean up and say now we need to keep from having teachers coming into the EOC part, you know, or other areas. So I think that there's something in between there. If it is an interim solution and it's 2,000 teachers, that, you know, I think that this is a good bill for, you know, but we're looking for an interim solution. And I don't know if keeping it in perpetuity is the way to do it, if we have to come back and clean that up later. Chairman Sapicki, you are recognized.
Thank you. And I think the bill that we worked on, you've just reiterated that it worked perfectly. We all were operating under, I thought it was 10 to 15,000. You said it was 10, and magically it went to 2. Now, you said you got a text from somebody. I don't know, who do you get the text from?
I got the text from a member of our staff who has the Commissioner of Education.
Thank you very much. So at least she's watching. It's great. So here's the question I have for you is, in the literacy bill we just passed, we allowed these people to go into the classroom temporarily, right?
No, that's not quite correct. So, and I'll try to get to this quickly. The Learning Loss Remediation and Student Acceleration Act gave the state board emergency rulemaking to provide this. That was not going to cover the whole course of the upcoming school year. There was another piece of legislation that you passed that allowed permanent rulemaking, and that covered us for the 2020-21 school year.
Correct. So the promulgation of that rule to allow this emergency filling of the need we had worked magnificently because we went from 10,000 to 2,000, according to the Commissioner of Education. She just gave you a number of 2,000. Where did the 8,000 people come from? Because we were told by the department that there weren't enough people to fill these positions. So either we're not being told the truth over here with the department about the openings, or the numbers are getting fudged. Which one is it?
I think
it's a pick and answer.
I don't think it's either of those. I think we've made a lot of progress on a number of different fronts in closing some of our vacancy gaps. I think the permits and waivers are part of them, but it's not a direct correlation that that's the only thing that's lessened our vacancies.
Chairman Sapicki,
Where
follow
did
up.
the 8,000 come from?
I think a number of the things I just mentioned. I think we've had some more teachers come through our prep programs. I think we've had folks go through alternative pathways. We've had some folks get additional endorsements through some new paths that are out there. And we've seen our Grow Your Own programs grow quite a bit. It's all of the above. I don't think we can point just to one thing. And it's going to take an all kind of encompassing approach to look at every pathway available if we're going to continue to make progress in this regard.
Mr. Chairman,
Sapicki.
are we taking any of those off the table right now with this bill?
No, I think our concern with this bill is that the permit and waiver process is an emergency process if you don't have another option. And for us to put that in place in perpetuity, it's not in our students' best interest to have a teacher in front of them who has not gone through any prep. We do those in emergency situations when we don't have other options. Doing that in the short term is not something we have an issue with. I want to be clear. And the sort of amendment that we had drafted and shared with the sponsor would have allowed that for another year. If we think it needs to be 2 years, we're open to sort of talking about that too. But to put that in place permanently is to create a pathway in which we potentially are going to have a whole lot of teachers in tested subjects, and I think in particularly with some of the work we've done to create much higher, more rigorous standards in terms of early literacy, we want teachers who have gone through those trainings and those processes to be in front of our students.
Every bill that we pass is not permanent because we can always come back and repeal it. So the argument that we're making this permanent is moot because the next General Assembly can come back in with direction from the state board or from the department and say, hey, we don't have a vacancy. We're great. We're good to go. But to come in and, I mean, the 2,000 that you just told us today, we didn't know that. Why wasn't that information shared with the committee? That's a big number. We went from 10,000 to 2,000. That's a whole different aspect that we're looking at here. But here's my question. If we leave this bill in place, we leave all these things in place, and we're 2,000 short, because let's say this bill doesn't pass, and we're still 2,000 short, is the department okay with 2,000 classrooms being vacated with teachers?
So in a second, I'm going to let my colleagues share some information about the actual numbers with some of the permits and waivers we've processed in the last year. No, we're not. And that's why the department and the administration wasn't flagged on this bill. We will work with sponsor to, if there is a short-term need for a relief valve, and we wanted to work to sort of operate that. This is one of the top priority areas for the Department of Education and for the commissioner, is to try to aggressively close those shortages. And we are aware of the seriousness of that issue. And again, there's a reason we are trying every sort of pathway we can. And we are very excited about some of the progress that we've made. And we know there's more progress that needs to be made. And I know Mr. Powers has some actual info about how many of those permits and waivers we've processed to date that I think might be helpful for you, Chairman.
Yep, and thank you for the question, Chairman. One of the things I do want to make sure to stress again, we've historically issued permits, and our issue is not with whether or not to continue issuing permits. It's whether to continue issuing permits for state-tested subject areas, which are the most critical subject areas that our students have. It includes third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade, our high school EOCs, those courses that are predictive of success in college. So I wanted to make sure that that point is not lost, because we are not pushing back on the ability to continue awarding permits overall. And so there is still that flexibility to alleviate teacher shortage and to help with staffing. And when you pair that with some of the approaches that Mr. Buffalino has mentioned here, you do allow some real flexibility at the district level to staff qualified, trained individuals in these critical classes. But what I wanted to share We have data on the uptick in permits that we have awarded since the legislation that we were speaking about prior has been enacted. So we awarded about 500, the number was 509 permits for all subject areas between July 1st of 2020 and June 30th of 2021. Between July 1st of 2021 and February 7th of 2022, we have awarded 1,443 permits. So we have had an uptick in the number of permits that we have awarded, and we can assume that's because of the increased flexibility. But to the point earlier, that does not account for the 8,000 difference, which I think begins to be attributed to some of the other flexibilities that have been granted. So we have about roughly 900 more permits that we issued in the past year than was historically normal, but it does not account for the difference of almost 8,000.
Representative Love, you were recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I did want to address, I know that we are trying to address a teacher shortage, and I'm in support of that. I do, however, have concerns with what I think what the department has listed, which is if we rush this or put it into permanence, we will have increased numbers of teachers who are unprepared. We already have a gap between achievement for African American students. And data shows that African American students oftentimes end up with more unprepared teachers. Urban League's 2020 State of Black America report shows that 21% of African American students have teachers who don't have an undergraduate degree in the subject they're teaching. And so I don't want us to do something that's going to expand that achievement gap. And I know my colleagues don't want to do that right now either. So if we take this a little bit slower, to borrow one of our former colleagues' phrase, I think we can get there faster. I hope that's the sentiment we all have here. It's not put any of our groups in a place where they would end up with more unprepared teachers. I hope that's the sentiment that we have. Thank you.
Chairman White, you were recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Did y'all say a while ago that you offered an amendment to this that was satisfying to DOE that maybe accomplish this? Did I hear that correctly when we began?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, we prepared a draft amendment that we shared with the sponsor on Friday evening.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I just want to make a point, and I'm in agreement with Representative Love. I just wants to be cautious where we're going. We understand there's a teacher shortage, and there's a shortage in about every industry we have right now: airline pilots, healthcare workers. But I want to be careful if we want to fill the gaps in our classroom, the 2,000, 10,000, whatever. We understand that. But take the airline industry. I have 100 hours flying a plane, VFR pilot. I can go to United and say, give me a permit. I'll take that 747 off. Now, if you see me in the cockpit, you better get out of the plane because I don't know how to land it. And that's the whole point. We need to make sure that we hold, teachers just as important. We may need to give these temporary permits because there's a temporary shortage or a long-term shortage, but we cannot relax it to where you don't go back. We can't keep this going because we have to have proficiency in the classroom. We have worked really hard over the last, I've been on Education Committee now, this is my 9th year, trying to create proficiency and standards so that our children, especially in K through 3, so I don't want us to relax things. I know we need a teacher shortage, and if your amendment works to kind of help that, but I would very much being against making this indefinite where you just keep doing permits and people aren't qualified because you're just dumbing down education even further. So let's keep that in mind as we move forward.
One thing I was going to mention is if we could get to the point of agreeing to possibly the 2-year, and then at the same time maybe we request OREA to look into the numbers as we go and report back to us so we can get some validation on what the teacher shortage is looking like as we go and see if it needs to be possibly extended. If that would be something, I just wanted to throw that out there. Does anybody else have any questions for the department? Representative Clemens.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sorry for coming back around a second time. But, you know, I share the chairman on the other end's concerns. You know, I don't know, I may be the only person on this committee who actually has children in public school still, second grader, a fourth grader, a sixth grader. You know, yeah. Okay. Well, that's good. Well, this, you know, it's personal to me. It's personal to several of us up here, apparently. Still, you know, the comment was made, a warm body is better than no one. Surely we cannot have a warm body standard for teachers and teacher quality in the state of Tennessee. You know, 3 years, a teacher who's not trained for 3 years of a child's educational career in elementary school in a single course, which is potential, is devastating. It could absolutely be devastating and change the entire trajectory of that child's life. I agree. I find myself rarely, once again, agreeing with this administration. We have to be very careful about just putting this in. You know, when we want to talk about teacher shortages, let's talk about respecting teachers, paying teachers more, addressing retention rates. Those are the ways to address teacher shortages, not just giving permits in perpetuity to people who aren't trained to teach a subject. We're looking this year to tie funding to performance in schools. Well, we're setting our schools up for failure if we're going to tie money and funding to that performance, because now we're just letting teachers teach that aren't even qualified to teach those subjects. So I reiterate my friends across the aisle, my friend, colleague from Davidson County, the concerns. We cannot do this to our children. There are ways to address teacher shortages. It is not a warm body standard. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions for the department? All right.
Thank you, Chairman.
We will be going back into session. We had some people on the list for our sponsor. Oh, go ahead, Chairlady Weaver.
Thank you. I enjoy the robust debate. I want to kind of rein things back a little bit, though. I'm not standing before this committee disregarding the profession of teaching. That is not the intent of this bill. What I am saying is, Houston, we have a problem, and we have a shortage of teachers. I'm also saying not to just put any teacher in that place. I guess I just really believe in my director of schools and the people in my district back home who are capable of making decisions on picking teachers to be in front of the classroom. You know, we're talking about a permit here. When you get a driver's license, you have hands-on and you get a permit to learn to drive. This is allowing teachers who have a passion, who want to teach, get in the classroom and, again, go through the bar that is set before them in this bill. It's just not easy to get all those ducks in a row to get your pass to go into the classroom. But there's also every year you are evaluated. You are looked at. And if you don't meet that bar, you can't go back. So we already have that process in place. And yes, our kids deserve great teachers. And we're doing a lot to try to help that profession. But I will also iterate that I did not get this amendment on Friday evening. I was called at home on Saturday with this amendment. And I was not able to be here Monday morning in time to put the amendment for a timely amendment on. I was called on the weekend. And again, the bill still addresses the department's concern because we go on a yearly check on this teacher who has this permit. It's not indefinite. We still check on this teacher. And so I'm open for questions.
Chairman Watt, you were on the list first.
request to take a 2-minute recess from, can I ask my question first, though? Okay.
Sure.
So the amendment that was proposed to you, are you in objection to the amendment that DOE gave you?
Well, I object to the point that it was given to me untimely. And I know committees are starting to close down. And I looked at what they gave me, and I didn't see much difference other than they wanted to control how it went. And I have faith in my directors of schools and the people that are in charge of those schools to know who is capable of standing before their kids. And we are in an emergency, and I feel that we need to at least try this. And again, you mentioned it. We keep talking about this over and over in addressing our shortage. So yeah, I thought, well, I've basically, the bill already addresses what their concern is. We have the State Board of Education having to issue the permit again. The director of schools has to write the letter. The teacher has to be highly evaluated, so it's not going to be just somebody off the streets. And I feel it'd be a way to bring teachers into areas where it's hard to get teachers. It's a permit. It's an internship. We do it with doctors. We do it with every other profession that you have hands-on. Why can't you do it in this scenario as well? So that's it.
All right, we're going to take a 2-minute recess. We stand in recess.
I'll be fine.
It's amazing.
It's better.
Modern stuff that you
We're back in session. Welcome back. That's a short 2-minute recess. Thank you. We're going to recognize Chair Lady Weaver back on House Bill 1901. Chair Lady Weaver.
Thank you, Chairman. Okay, so that's why I love subcommittees, and this is why we do things we do here in the House. We work it out, and I've agreed to go ahead and do two things. One, we don't have the amendment before us. It's not been drafted. So I think it's best that we have a piece of paper in front of us. I'll work with department to their amendment, and then we'll come back here, and you'll be able to see the amendment before you, and I'll also honor the chairman's policy in making things right in subcommittee before we take it to full. So I'm going to honor that too. So I'm going to honor two folks here today, the department and the chairman. Hot diggity dog. So I'm going to roll it a week.
I appreciate that, Chair Lady Weaver. Because of that, you will be item number 1 on next week's calendar.
Thank you so much.
Without objection, we're going to roll this 1 week. That brings us to item number.
I still have another one.
Item number 7. I think this one might be a little bit quicker. Item number 7.
I forgot about this.
House Bill 2449 by Chair Lady Weaver. Do I have a motion? Second, properly motioned. Chair Lady Weaver, you're recognized on House Bill 2449.
So when we did the reciprocity bill last year, if you're pro in Georgia, you're pro in Tennessee, which everyone seems to love that idea. It really helps fill in our teacher shortage. This just adds 2 words, assistant principal, so the administrative part. So we left that out, not intentionally, but apparently you have to go through this whole rigmarole. If you're a principal in another state, you can't be a principal here. So this addresses that, and that's all it does.
You've heard the explanation. Members, you have any questions for the sponsor? Seeing none, we'll be voting on House Bill 2449. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. On to full education.
Thanks, Chairman, Committee.
Thank you, Chair Lady Weaver. That brings us to item number 8, House Bill 2028 by Representative Hall. Properly motioned. Representative Hall, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and colleagues. House Bill 2028 is very simple by design. It authorizes the school board to allow a teacher to withhold the student's cell phone if the cell phone becomes a distraction during the instructional time of the class, and then the cell phone is returned after class. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I renew my motion.
Thank you for that. Members, you have any questions? Representative Clemens, you're recognized.
That just for that one class period, is that what you're saying?
Yes, sir,
President Hall.
that is correct.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman Watt, you are recognized.
So we're just putting this in code. I mean, could a teacher or school already do this, or is just because we put it in code?
Representative Hall.
I think this brings more clarity and more transparency.
Yeah, no, I agree. I just wondered. I thought they already did this.
Thank you. Thank you.
Chairman Reagan.
Thank you. Quick question. Some school districts, and I'm aware of at least 2, when the phone is confiscated, it's sent to the principal's office, and the student can't claim it till after school. Is this bill going to interfere with that?
Representative Hall.
This bill plainly states that the cell phone is returned after the instructional period of that class.
Chairman Reagan.
So you're telling me that a school that has the policy of sending it to the principal's office will have to change their policy, correct?
Representative Hall.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Hold on. Representative Castro.
That's insane. Obviously, it's a no-nonsense bill, but we have to intervene on what should be a matter of fact at the local level. It just explains everything.
I agree.
Representative Hall.
I agree. I renew my motion, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman Watt, you are recognized.
It's for clarity. Good bill, and I question the bill. But do we want to override what is already in code if it goes to the principal's office? Is that right? It's not in code. School policy, okay. Thank you.
Representative Clemens.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that this bill simply allows a governing body to authorize a teacher to withhold a student's phone for that duration. I don't think it overrides the ability for them to send it to the principal's office till the end of the day. It just says they may authorize it under this. So just wanted to clarify that.
Any other questions? Chairman Reagan.
Yes, with that point of clarity, I can now support the bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Teamwork. All right. Makes the dream work. All right. Without objection, we are going to be voting on House Bill 2028. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it on the full education.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Committee.
That brings us to item number 9, House Bill 2621 by Representative Harris. Properly motion. Representative Harris, you are recognized on your bill.
Thank you, Chairman and members. There is an amendment on this bill, 13660.
All right, members, we have an untimely filed amendment on this bill, drafting code, what is it again? What is it? 13660. Untimely filed amendment. Without objection, we will be hearing the untimely filed amendment. Let's hear the explanation. You do on the House floor, but not in committee. Any other questions? All right, let's, would you like to please explain your untimely filed amendment, please?
Thank you, Chairman. This untimely filed amendment changes, deleting the word superintendent from this bill and substituting it with director of schools.
All right, without objection, we are going to be voting to adopt Amendment 13660. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. All right, we are back on the bill as amended. If you would like to explain your bill.
Great, thank you so much. And as many of you know, foster youth is a very important topic for me. And so any opportunity that I can get to advocate for our foster youth, I try my absolute best to do so. HB 2621 would require that each LEA designate a foster care liaison to collaborate with the Department of Children's Services to serve as a point of contact between the foster student and DCS to address educational barriers for students in foster care and assist with resources. This bill would allow DCS to create a PowerPoint of such with best practices for choosing and training the foster care liaison on who to contact, signs to look for, and ways to work together for the betterment of every student, foster students specifically. The fiscal note on this one is not significant, and for much larger school districts, the option to have a building point of contact in some or all of the schools is an option but not required. And the training from DCS to the foster care liaison will also trickle down to those schools within the LEA that choose to also have a building point of contact. So an example of that would be that if a child was abused at home and came to school, at least they knew who to go to. They had that point of contact they can reach out to who can connect them with DCS. And so this is kind of streamlined between that. I think I've spoken with most of the members in regards to this, and so I appreciate your favorable vote on this. Thank you so much.
You've heard the explanation. Does anybody have any questions for the sponsor? Chairman Watt, you're recognized.
Just a point. I was sitting here thinking when I talked. Thank you. When I talked to you earlier, just confirm this. I have a bill coming that's called Handle with Care. And that's where if a child in a home where there's a domestic violence or domestic dispute and law enforcement has to come to that home, and then that child that morning is headed to school, that law enforcement calls that school and lets the school, and my question is who they let know other than the principal, I would assume, know that this has happened and handle this child with care because what they may have seen or had as they come to school. So would this type person be maybe a person they could go see or where the call could come to maybe?
Representative Harris?
Absolutely. So this is that's a great segue between those two bills to allow that person, the police officer, whoever, to notify the school. The school will be able to reach out to, we'll have a person on site to be able to reach to DCS and also be a point of contact as they go through that process of that child being absent. Obviously, with children being absent from school affects numbers too, so just a great bill all the way around.
Any other questions for the sponsor? Seeing none, we will be voting on House Bill 2621. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed say no. Ayes have it. You're on to full education.
Chairman.
All right, that brings us to item number 10, House Bill 1687 by Chairman Reedy. We got two motions. I'm sorry, properly motioned. Representative Reedy, you're recognized.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. And I will read from the actual bill, that's a very simple bill. If a teacher's dismissal or failure of reelection is due only to the loss of funding for the position, then the local Board of Education or Director of Schools, as appropriate, shall state in the notice required under this section that the only reason for dismissing the teacher or not reelecting the teacher's contract for the next succeeding school year is a loss of funding for the position, which basically states that some folks would think that she got or he got fired for some reason, but this way it clarifies for the next, hopefully, school district that they could know the reason the teacher was let go.
Thank you for that. Members, do you have any questions for the sponsor? Seeing none, we'll be voting on House Bill 1687. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed say no. Ayes have it. On to full education.
Mr. Chairman.
That brings us to item number 11, House Bill 1935 by Representative Reedy. Properly motioned, you are recognized.
Thank you, Chairman. And history behind this bill, it was actually 2017 in front of the Education Committee. It was the Educator's Bill of Rights, House Bill 174. What we're doing is taking the name, the Educator's Bill of Rights, and codifying that. But, Mr. Chairman, I want to read for the record, not only for your use, but the audience and those viewing, the purpose of this, and it was we were building a foundation that in future years that we can work on. And it states that's currently in Tennessee Code annotated, for the purpose of this section, educator means any teacher, principal, supervisor, or other individual required by law to hold a valid license of qualifications for employment in the public schools of this state. An educator has the right to be treated with civility and respect, have his or her professional judgment and discretion respected, report any errants, offensive, or abusive content or behavior of students to school officials or appropriate agencies, provide students with a classroom in a school in which the educators, students, the property of the educator and students, and peers will be safe, defend themselves and their students from physical violence or physical harm pursuant to Code 49-6-2802, share information regarding a student's educational experience, health, or safety with the student's parents or legal guardian unless otherwise prohibited by the state or the federal Education or the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, which is FERPA. Review all instructional material or curriculum prior to those materials being utilized for instruction of students, not to be required to use their personal money to appropriate equipment in a classroom. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for our sponsor? Seeing none, we'll be voting on House Bill 1935. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. On to full education.
Thank you, Chairman and
Thank
committee.
you. That brings us to item number 12, House Bill 2408 by Representative Byrd. We have a motion. Properly motioned. Representative Byrd, you are recognized on House Bill 2408.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 2408 is pretty what it says it is. Teachers should not be disciplined or subject for remedial action for teaching Tennessee standards, for using state or LEA-approved instructional material as part of the course of instruction, curriculum, or instructional program. Teachers should not be accountable for something that the state or Department of Ed or the LEA has approved. They should, they should go through the chain of command. If it's something with the Department of Ed, then they should take it up with the Department of Ed. But I think they should go through the chain of command and not hold the teacher accountable for that.
Thank you for that. Does anybody have any questions for the sponsor? Chairman White?
No question. I'm so glad to see you standing up there.
Well, it's good to be standing here.
Yeah, thank you.
Chairman Reagan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I concur. Good to see you here back in the swing of things. I do have a point of clarity, though. LEA-approved materials, specifically I'm talking about supplemental materials. that does not extend to the teacher choosing their own and saying, I'm part of the LEA and therefore it's LEA approved, correct?
Actually not. I mean, if the teacher chooses, if they bring a FEM in that's not LEA approved or state approved, then they should be held accountable.
Thank you for that clarity.
Thank you. Does anybody have any other questions? Seeing none, we'll be voting on House Bill 2408. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. On to full education, brings us to item number 13, House Bill 2409. We do have an untimely filed amendment, drafting code. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, 013426.
13426. Second on the bill, properly motioned. Now, we are in proper posture here. Would you please explain your amendment?
Okay, the amendment makes the bill, and this is, y'all was looking for a solution about the teaching shortage. Well, this is one of the solutions.
I tell you what, since it makes your bill, let's go ahead without objection. Let's get it on the bill. Sorry about that. All right, thank you. Without objection, we'll be voting to adopt this amendment, 13426. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. All opposed say no. The ayes have it. You're back on your bill as amended, and you're recognized.
Okay, this is a bill that I think personally should have been passed 30 years ago. Right now, the state pays 45% for teachers' insurance, which everybody that I've talked to did not know that. They thought they got paid as far as the same benefits as state employees, and they don't. State employees, they get 80% paid by the state, and they have to ante up to 20%, whereas teachers, they have to ante up 55% if the local LEA doesn't supplement that part. And I know Wayne County, which is distressed, a distressed county, I talked to the director of school today, and a family policy for a teacher in Wayne County is $1,692 a month. The state and the local LEA, what they put in it is $841. So the teacher has to come up with $850 a month for their insurance. So if you want to keep teachers, then this is a bill that will help them as far as retaining the teachers. Because Wayne County is losing a lot of good teachers. They're going to other counties that can afford more of the insurance, and so they're missing out on some of their good teachers.
Thank you for that explanation. Does anybody have any questions? Chairman Watt.
Seems like I got all the questions. So that's an $8,500 pay increase over a 10-month period of time for teachers.
Well, not really, because they go up to 80%. So they still would be for the 20%, but it'd definitely be a $400 or $500 raise a month.
And we're trying to figure out how to give them a $1,000 a month raise.
Yeah. I mean, I know some of my teachers would rather see this than to get a raise.
And it says the fiscal note's not significant. Explain that.
Well, they haven't really figured that out yet.
Okay.
So yeah, it'll be significant, believe me.
Chairman Sapicki.
Just out of curiosity, because if the state would be doing this, would this make the teachers state employees now?
Well, they should already be state employees because the state is in charge of the curriculum, their policies that they have to choose from, the standards, everything that the teacher does is dictated by the Department of Ed. So why they're not teachers, I don't know. I mean, why they're not state employees, I've never have figured that out. I was in the education profession for 33 years, and that was always a pet peeve of mine, that they didn't pay the insurance like they did other state employees.
So yes?
Yes.
Thank you.
Representative Clemens.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to thank you for this legislation. It's more than deserved and overdue. So thank you for this. I think this will benefit every single teacher and therefore benefit our children. Thank you.
Well, and I just wanted to plug this in. The support staff, the secretaries, the janitors, people like that, the state only provides 15% of their insurance. Whereas our custodians, maintenance here, they get 80% too. So it's a big difference between a state employee and a teacher or a public education employee.
Appreciate that. Appreciate this bill. Does anybody have any other questions for the sponsor? Seeing none, we'll be voting. Sorry, back to my page here. We'll be voting on House Bill 2409. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it on the full education. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members.
All right, moving right along, we're going to go to item 15, House Bill 2003 by Chairman Sapicki. Do I have a motion? Properly motion. Chairman Sapicki, you are recognized.
Real quick, sorry, Mr. Chairman, caught me there. This is a very simple bill. Ladies and gentlemen, this recognizes our level 4 and 5 teachers with a bonus paid for by the state of Tennessee in a grant program outside the BEP. A level 4 teacher would receive a $1,000 bonus. A level 5 teacher would receive a $2,000 bonus. Now, if a level 4 teacher would happen to get 40% proficiency rates from their students, the state would pay an additional $3,000 on top of that for a bonus. And if a level 5 teacher would reach 55%, an additional $4,000 would be paid to that teacher on top of the original two. Obviously, it's going to have a very big fiscal note, but the governor did increase the budget $5 billion in recurring, so maybe we can find some money somewhere else.
Thank you for that. Thank you for this bill. Does anybody have any questions for our sponsor? Representative Clemens?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Teachers deserve more money. We argue that constantly. I do have an issue with tying that to arbitrary measures of performance. I've said this a million times in here. Everything that happens outside that school building gets brought into that school building. And teachers are not trained to deal with all those things, though we put the expectations on and burdens on their shoulders to deal with all those things. And some teachers teach in different communities than others and have other challenges that other teachers may not. I don't think that tying more money to these measures of performance is the way to adequately do this. I'd love to see us get more and more money to our teachers. I just can't support tying it to these scores. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Speaking.
I appreciate the comments. I'm going to stand with our teachers and support them in getting them a bonus for a job well done. If the representative chooses to stand against our teachers, that's fine.
Chairman Reagan, you are recognized.
Thank you. And again, a point of clarity, our colleague at the end mentioned arbitrary. You were talking about performance measures, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So they're not arbitrary?
No, sir.
Thank you for that clarity.
Any other questions for a sponsor? Seeing none, we'll be voting on House Bill 2003. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it on the full education. Little cleanup here. Item number 1, House Bill 2154 will be rolled 1 week. That brings us to item number 17, House Bill 2086 by Chairman White. Do I have a motion? Motion. Properly motion. Chairman White, you are.
May I ask, you rolled 16 1 week, 2 weeks? It needs to be 2 weeks.
All right, we are properly motioned on House Bill 2086. Chairman White, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sorry, I misunderstood on that 16. Members, what this does, this has brought some of our counties, school districts lie on the borders of other states, and this was brought to me by the Collierville School District, which is in Shelby County, and it butts up to Mississippi. The current law already says that when the LEA hires a teacher from across state lines, those children are, that may come because the teacher teaches there, they can also have the come in and not have to pay tuition. It's permissive whether or not they pay tuition or not. What this bill does is just to add staff. So anyone that they hire, whether it be a teacher or staff, they have the option of where those children would have to pay tuition or not out of state. And simply, that's what it does.
Thank you, Chairman White. Does anybody have any questions for our sponsor? Representative Hurt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You mentioned out of state. How does this relate to, I mean, between districts? How does that look, or does this address that at all?
Not districts, it's just this particular one, it says, if we can find the exact sentence. Notwithstanding the part to the contrary, if a parent of a school-aged child is employed by an LEA located outside the LEA of the parent's residence, then the employee's child may attend a school within the LEA that employs the non-resident parent. It's just giving them permission as an LEA to allow that child instead of having to pay tuition. A lot of times, this particular instance, they were in Office Day, and they have a great staff member, and the reason they want to keep that staff, but one of the reasons they want the child to come there too. So it just opens that up for them.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, we'll be voting on House Bill 2086. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, say no. Ayes have it. On the floor, education. Good luck with that, Chairman. We're over to item number 19, which is House Bill 2703 by Chairman White. Do I have a motion? Properly motion. Chairman White, you're recognized on House Bill 2703.
Thank you, Chairman and Committee. This is probably the easiest bill I've had since I've been up here for 12 years. Senator Crow brought me this on the last day of filing. He said, would you please find me a House sponsor? And I didn't have time to do that, and I had one spot left, so I said, okay, I care for you. All he's asking for is that the Department of Education shall design and adopt a certificate of licensure so that when you get a teacher's license with these particular things on it, like your name and when the issue, so that they can then take that and frame it and put it on their wall of their classroom and say, I am licensed as an accredited teacher. And that's really all it does. It's got a little $15,000 fiscal note I got to deal with, but besides that.
Any questions for the sponsor? Seeing none, be voting on House Bill 2703. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. On to full education. That brings us to the last item that we'll have on the calendar tonight, item number 20, House Bill 1890. I'll hand the gavel down to Chairman White. I've got it.
Mr. Chairman, can I say something real quick? It's 5:57, and there's a House rule. It's hard to find, but it's there. At 6 o'clock or later, pizza must be bought by the chairman.
Pending filibustering, we will get this one done, I think.
Okay, members, we're now on House Bill 1890 by Chairman Haston. You are recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Motion. Second.
Thank you for
A
that.
motion is second. Any discussion on the bill?
You've heard the explanation. Question on the bill.
Question's been called for. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of moving House Bill 1890 out to full education indicate by saying aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Moves out. We're now on item 21, House Bill 2300 by Chairman Haston.
No, it's been rolled.
Oh, that was rolled? Okay.